One smile, one kind word, one act of generosity. That's all it took to destroy everything he had built. What if I told you that your biggest weakness isn't your enemies, but the people you trust too easily? This story will change how you see everyone around you. Stay until the end. Trust is beautiful. It's the foundation of relationships, partnerships, and society itself. But there's a dark side to trust that nobody wants to talk about. Blind trust. Naive trust. The kind of trust that gets good people destroyed by wolves in sheep's clothing. History is filled with brilliant people who lost everything not because they weren't smart enough, but because they trusted the wrong person. And today, I want to tell you about Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, and how his trust in the wrong people led to one of history's most brutal betrayals. Because the lesson he learned too late might save you from your own destruction. Rome, 44 BC. Julius Caesar stood at the peak of power. He had conquered Gaul, defeated his enemies, crossed the Rubicon, and become the most powerful man in the known world. Generals feared him. Kings bowed to him. The people loved him. He had everything a man could want. But Caesar had a fatal flaw. Despite being a military genius who could read his enemies on the battlefield, he couldn't see the enemies sitting right next to him in the Senate. He believed that loyalty, once earned, lasted forever. He believed that showing mercy to his defeated enemies would turn them into grateful allies. He believed that trust was a strength, not a potential weakness. Among his closest associates was a man named Marcus Junius Brutus. Caesar loved Brutus like a son. Some historians even believe Brutus might have been Caesar's biological son. Caesar trusted him completely. He had forgiven Brutus for fighting against him in the Civil War. He had promoted him to high positions. He had shown him nothing but favor and kindness. And Brutus, along with dozens of other senators Caesar trusted, was secretly planning to murder him. Here's what most people don't know about Caesar's assassination. He was warned multiple times. A soothsayer approached him in the street and said, "Beware the Ides of March." Caesar dismissed it. His wife Calpurnia had nightmares about his death and begged him not to go to the Senate that day. He ignored her. Friends told him there were whispers of conspiracy. He laughed it off. Why? Because Caesar couldn't imagine that the people he had shown mercy to, the people he had elevated to power, the people he trusted, would betray him. His trust wasn't just confidence. It was blindness. On the morning of March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar received another warning. Someone handed him a note listing all the conspirators and their plot. He didn't even read it. He was too busy, too confident, too trusting. That piece of paper could have saved his life. Instead, it became evidence of his fatal mistake. When Caesar entered the Senate that day, he was surrounded by men he considered friends and allies. Men he had pardoned. Men he had trusted. Men whose careers he had built. And every single one of them had a dagger hidden in their robes. The attack came suddenly. One senator approached Caesar with a petition, a common occurrence. But it was a signal. Within seconds, the conspirators surrounded him. The first blade struck, then another, and another. 23 times they stabbed him. 23 senators he had trusted drove their daggers into his body. Caesar fought back at first. He was a warrior, after all. But when he saw Brutus among the attackers, something inside him broke. According to historical accounts, his last words weren't a curse or a cry for help. They were words of heartbreak. "Et tu, Brute, even you, Brutus." In that moment, Julius Caesar learned the hardest lesson of his life. And it was the last lesson he would ever learn. The people you trust the most are often in the best position to destroy you. Not because they're more evil than your obvious enemies, but because you've given them access. You've lowered your guard. You've shown them your vulnerabilities. Caesar had defeated armies of thousands, but he couldn't defend himself against the betrayal of those closest to him. He died not on a battlefield, but in a Senate surrounded by friends who became assassins. His trust, his mercy, his generosity, all the qualities we consider virtues, had set him up for destruction. Now, here's what we need to understand. Caesar's story isn't about becoming paranoid or trusting no one. It's about understanding that trust must be earned and constantly evaluated. The conspirators weren't strangers. They were men Caesar had known for years, but he never questioned their loyalty. He never verified their intentions. He assumed that his kindness would guarantee their faithfulness. This is the mistake millions of people make every single day. They trust based on hope rather than evidence. They trust because someone seems nice. They trust because someone says the right things. They trust because it feels good to trust. But feelings aren't facts. Appearances aren't reality. Words aren't proof. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who lived shortly after Caesar, wrote about this very issue. He said, "It is better to learn late than never to learn at all." Caesar learned too late. But you don't have to. Modern psychology backs this up. There's a concept called betrayal blindness, where people unconsciously ignore signs of betrayal because acknowledging them would be too painful or disruptive. Caesar exhibited classic betrayal blindness. The warnings were there. The signs were present. But he chose not to see them because seeing them would mean acknowledging that his world wasn't what he thought it was. So how do you protect yourself without becoming a cynical, paranoid person who trusts no one? How do you find the balance between healthy trust and dangerous naivety? Let me break down the lessons from Caesar's fatal mistake. First, trust is earned, not given. Just because someone is nice to you doesn't mean they're trustworthy. Just because someone helps you once doesn't mean they're loyal. Trust should be built slowly through consistent actions over time, not granted freely based on words or gestures. Second, watch what people do, not what they say. The conspirators praised Caesar publicly while plotting his death privately. Their words said loyalty. Their actions proved betrayal. Always pay more attention to patterns of behavior than to promises and proclamations. Third, past loyalty doesn't guarantee future loyalty. Caesar pardoned Brutus and others who had fought against him, assuming his mercy would earn their eternal gratitude. But circumstances change. People's interests change. Loyalties shift. Never assume that someone who was trustworthy yesterday will automatically be trustworthy tomorrow. Fourth, be especially careful with those closest to you. The greatest betrayals rarely come from strangers. They come from friends, family members, business partners, people who have intimate knowledge of your life. These are the people who can hurt you most because you've given them the access to do so. Fifth, listen to warnings, even when you don't want to. Caesar ignored multiple warnings because they contradicted what he wanted to believe. How many times have people ignored red flags because they liked the person showing them? How many times have you ignored your gut feeling because you wanted to trust someone? Here's what Caesar should have done and what you should do. Create a system of verification. Don't just trust. Verify. Ronald Reagan famously used the Russian proverb, trust but verify, in his negotiations. It's brilliant advice. When someone tells you something, verify it independently. When someone makes a promise, watch to see if they follow through consistently. When someone positions themselves as loyal, look for evidence in their actions, not their words. Set boundaries even with trusted people. Caesar gave certain senators unlimited access to him. That access became his downfall. You can trust someone and still maintain healthy boundaries. You can care about someone and still protect yourself. Pay attention to who benefits from your downfall. Most betrayals aren't personal. They're transactional. The conspirators didn't kill Caesar because they hated him personally. They killed him because his power threatened theirs. Look around your life. Who would benefit if you failed? Who would gain if you lost? Those are the people to watch most carefully. Keep your counsel. Caesar was open about his plans and thoughts with those around him. That information was used against him. Strategic information should be shared carefully, even with people you trust. It's not paranoia. It's wisdom. Finally, trust your instincts. Caesar had multiple warnings, and deep down, he probably sensed the danger. But he overrode his instincts with logic and hope. Your gut feeling exists for a reason. Millions of years of evolution gave you the ability to sense danger. Don't ignore it just because you can't prove it logically. Now, I know what you're thinking. If I follow all this advice, won't I become paranoid and unable to form meaningful relationships? No. There's a huge difference between being cautious and being paranoid. There's a difference between protecting yourself and isolating yourself. The goal isn't to trust no one. The goal is to trust wisely. To trust the right people for the right reasons. To trust based on evidence, not hope. To trust while still maintaining healthy boundaries and awareness. Think about it like this. You lock your door at night, right? Does that mean you think everyone is a criminal? No. It means you're being reasonably cautious. You look both ways before crossing the street. Does that mean you think every driver is trying to hit you? No. It means you're being smart. The same principle applies to trust. You can be open to people while still being observant. You can be kind while still being discerning. You can build meaningful relationships while still protecting yourself from those who would take advantage. The strongest people aren't those who trust everyone or trust no one. They're those who trust selectively, wisely, and with awareness. They're those who can identify authentic people and weed out the pretenders. They're those who learn from stories like Caesar's without letting it turn them bitter. Julius Caesar was brilliant. He was brave. He was accomplished beyond measure. But he made one fatal error. He believed that his character would protect him from others' lack of character. He believed that his loyalty would guarantee their loyalty. He believed that showing mercy was always the right move, even when dealing with people who saw mercy as weakness. The last thing Caesar saw before he died was the face of Brutus, the man he trusted most, driving a dagger toward his heart. And in that final moment, he understood. Trust given too freely is trust that will be exploited. Loyalty assumed without verification is loyalty that doesn't exist. You don't have to make Caesar's mistake. You have the advantage of learning from his tragedy. You can build meaningful relationships based on verified trust. You can be generous without being naive. You can be kind without being blind. But remember this, not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well. Not everyone who helps you once will help you always. Not everyone who claims loyalty possesses it. And the people closest to you are often in the best position to betray you. So here's what you do starting today. Look around at the people in your life. Not with paranoia, but with awareness. Ask yourself, am I trusting this person based on evidence or hope? Have they proven themselves over time, or am I just assuming their loyalty? What would they do if betraying me benefited them? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're necessary ones. Because you deserve relationships built on real trust, not blind faith. You deserve to protect yourself while still staying open to genuine connection. Caesar's dying words were, "Et tu, brute." Don't let your last words be a question of betrayal. Let your life be lived with eyes wide open, heart protected but not closed, trusting wisely rather than blindly. The knife in your back doesn't usually come from your enemies. It comes from those you allowed to get close. Remember that. Protect yourself accordingly. And never, ever ignore the warnings. Trust is beautiful, but blind trust is deadly. Choose wisdom over naivety. Choose awareness over assumption. Choose to learn from Caesar's fatal mistake. Your life may depend on it.